Good morning, everybody. Okay, a couple of things at the top here, and we'll get right after it. The Department of Defense, through the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, has launched the DoD Aerospace Education Research and Innovation Center, otherwise known as AERIC. We pronounce it ERIC here, at Tuskegee University in Alabama. ERIC will support 2-year research projects in the areas of fatigue damage tolerance, experimental aerodynamics, and the performance of materials and components under extreme environmental conditions. Tuskegee University is the #1 producer of black aerospace engineers in the nation, and we are very excited to partner with them as they host ERIC. Today, Secretary Austin participated in a virtual meeting of NATO colleagues from Canada, Lithuania, Poland, the United Kingdom, and Ukraine. The meeting was hosted by the United Kingdom Secretary of State for Defense, Ben Wallace. All these allies are actively providing training and support in Ukraine alongside the United States. And the meeting came on the heels of Secretary Austin's February 19th discussion with Ukraine Minister of Defense Andrei Taran, which focused on Ukraine's defense priorities, reform objectives, and, of course, how the 5 allies can support Ukraine's Euro-Atlantic goals. Now, as you've been tracking, Secretary directed the force to conduct a 1-day stand-down to deal with extremism in the ranks. To support this effort, we issued a video to the force with a message directly from Secretary Austin. It will be used alongside other training materials to facilitate a good exchange of ideas as commands work through their stand-downs. And you can find that on defense.gov. That's on our website. On the personnel front, we onboarded another 7 personnel today, bringing the total to 78. Today's additions include Spencer Boyer, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Europe and NATO Policy; Melancy Harris, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Combating Terrorism; Farouk Mita, Director of Small Business Programs; and someone that you're undoubtedly going to get to spend some time with here, Jamal Brown, our Deputy Press Secretary, who is right there. Wave your hand there, Jamal. We just checked in today. Finally, Secretary Austin will be making his first trip as Secretary of Defense this week. He'll travel to Colorado on Wednesday to visit with the U.S. Northern Command, and then to California to see the first active duty team supporting one of FEMA's mega vaccination sites, this one, of course, in Los Angeles. He'll also head to San Diego on Thursday, and while there, he'll link up with the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Mike Gilday, as they visit USS Nimitz as she begins to make her final preparations to return home after a 10-month deployment. He'll also have the opportunity to visit with 2 Navy vaccination sites on the base at North Island and see what the Navy's doing to make more vaccines available to sailors there and in San Diego. Okay, with that, I think, Bob, you're on the phone, right?
Yes, I am. Thanks, John. I have a question for you about Iraq. In light of today's rocket attack on the Green Zone and, of course, the recent attack in Erbil, I'm wondering what you make of this resumption of attacks and whether this appears to you to be the work of the militias that have been a problem previously.
Well, certainly we have seen attacks in the past from Shia-backed militias operating inside Iraq. I don't know of any attribution for the one in Erbil from last weekend. I don't think that's been finally determined. And as for the recent attack, again, I don't have any attribution on that either. It's difficult to say with certainty, Bob, whether there's a strategic calculation driving this recent uptick in attacks, or whether this is just a continuation of the sorts of attacks we've seen in the past. But obviously, we're going to be working closely with our Iraqi partners, as we have been on the attack last weekend in Erbil. We'll be working with them to get more context about this and try to place it in proper perspective. But clearly, look, I mean, these are dangerous attacks. And as we saw in the one in Erbil, an individual lost his life, and now a family's grieving. And I would say again that we're there to counter ISIS at the invitation of the Iraqi government, and our commanders, just like the Iraqi commanders, have the right of self-defense. Let's see, go back to the phone again here. Dan Segalin.
Thanks for calling on me. I have a question about the Presidential Commission on Sexual Assault that DOD is putting together. Is DOD consulting with members of Congress on who will be in the commission, or is DOD just picking whoever it wants without regard to input from members of Congress?
Well, we're certainly going to consult with Congress as the plans for this commission come together. Dan, I can tell you that the Secretary met with the senior OSD leaders, senior leaders here at the Pentagon, which included the service chiefs, to talk to him this morning about his feedback on their inputs to him. As you know, it was his first directive on his second day in office to ask the services to provide him input on what they felt they were doing right, what they needed to improve, maybe ideas they have going forward. And he had the opportunity to review that work and talk to him about that today. It was a good, productive discussion. He explained to them that he expects before the end of the week to formally announce the 90-day commission with more granularity and more detail. I'm not going to get ahead of that announcement here today. But to your other question, as I said at the top, he certainly understands, respects, and appreciates the interest that members of Congress have shown on this issue, and will keep them fully apprised as we move forward. Okay, in the room, David.
John, when Secretary Austin talks about extremism in the ranks, he says it's probably more than we would like and less than the media depicts it as. Is he expecting some sort of number out of the services? Somebody to tell him exactly how many extremists there are in the ranks?
I think what the Secretary would like to do, David, is to see if there's a way to get a better sense of the numbers. If there's a way to try to collect data on the extent of this problem. He's also mindful that that's a difficult task to undertake, because it's largely, we get a sense of the problem largely driven by conduct and behavior. And it's difficult to know sometimes, even in conduct and behavior that is prejudicial to good order and discipline, or a violation of the UCMJ. Often it's not always possible to know what drives that. Not to mention that some extremist behavior happens off base, off duty, and is captured rather by civilian law enforcement, not even federal, but maybe even local civilian law enforcement. And we may not have perfect insight into that database. So would he, well, I don't want to ask the rhetorical question. He, of course, would like to know with more granularity how big the problem is. And that would include, but not solely, but it would include getting a sense of the numbers of people who are in the ranks, who espouse these beliefs and are acting or willing to act on them. But he's mindful that it's a difficult data set to get to.
I haven't asked today, but last week when you asked the services, when are your stand downs taking place? The answer was, we're waiting for guidance from OSD. Are you supposed to deliver some guidance before each unit has its stand down, and if so, when is that guidance coming?
As I understand it, anecdotally, some services, some commands have already conducted their stand downs, and we are in the process of putting out, and we expect to do it very shortly here, some training materials for them to be able to use when they conduct to conduct their stand downs. And the video I referenced today, which again is on our website, was a part of that training package. You'll see when you watch the video, he was clearly addressing it to the force.
We can expect these training materials when?
I don't have a date certain for you. The team's working hard on that, and I think it'll be very soon. That stuff will be delivered.
Can we get back to the numbers for a second? Now, the Marines have said that in the past 3 years they had 16 incidents of extremist behavior, mostly online postings. No sense of how those cases were resolved. And last year, the FBI said of half the cases, investigations they're looking at, involving mostly former military members, some active, roughly half of those have to do with domestic extremism. So if you get those two, data points, I mean, why can't you guys get more? I mean, it's just kind of frustrating that we have this little information.
Yeah, Tom, look, back to David's question, I think the Secretary very much would like to have a better sense of the data. And if there are lessons to be learned in one of the services that other services can learn from, or we can apply centrally here, I think he's open to that. And I understand the frustration. I do, and he shares it. I mean, we need to have a better understanding of how deep and how broad the problem is. There are, as you know, and we've talked about it, I mean, there's First Amendment rights here, too, that also have to be respected. This isn't about, trying to, get into the, brains of an individual member of the military, but rather to make sure that we have a better sense of who we're bringing in, and that those who are in are ascribing and acting on our core values, the core values of the institution, and not some other group's core values that are inimical to what we're supposed to do for defense of the nation. And then the last piece is that they're not acting out on beliefs, extremist beliefs, that put good order and discipline in jeopardy, or worse, put their shipmates, their teammates, their colleagues in jeopardy as well. Okay, let me go back to the phones here. Sam Legrone, USNI.
Hi. To follow up on the peer-side visit of CNO and SecDef Austin, one of the things that we're seeing with carrier deployments writ large is they're getting longer and longer and longer, in part with this commitment to having assets in CENTCOM. And you're seeing double pump deployment just start last week with Eisenhower leaving Norfolk. TR's out. It's a double pump deployment, or a deployment back-to-back without a significant maintenance period. Given that Nimitz has been out for 303 days with those sailors and Marines away from their families, what is the department doing moving forward to see if you can balance the kind of demand signal for these assets that, we're talking about, like in the last year, there's more carriers underway than since the Arab Spring. So, thanks.
Yeah, Sam, thanks. I mean, it's a good question, and it's a fair one. I mean, I think it's something that it's been a long-standing issue. This, balancing capabilities versus requirements, and there's a lot of requirements out there in the world for, in this case, you're talking about naval capabilities, and the Secretary is certainly mindful of the demand that's placing on the service itself, and of course on the sailors, and that's one of the reasons why he wanted to go out to see Nimitz as she gets ready to come home to thank the sailors for that extraordinary service and sacrifice. He has also had, and I suspect he will continue to have, through the budget season and even beyond, discussions with the chairman and the chiefs about the resiliency of the force, the kinds of capabilities we're putting in the field and the fleet, and the degree to which the requirements process is being handled in the most effective and the most efficient way. I mean, there's always tension between what's needed out there and what's available. And he's mindful of that, having been a combatant commander himself and the vice chief of the Army. He's been on both sides of that equation, and I think he's uniquely qualified and situated to try to get the balance better going forward. Idris, Reuters?
Thanks, John. So last week, NATO announced that it would up its presence in Iraq to about 4,000. I know you tweeted out last week saying it won't include U.S. military personnel. If the number of troops, NATO troops in Iraq does go up to 4,000, does the Pentagon believe that it allows the U.S. military presence to be reduced?
So what I said was that while we certainly support NATO's expanded mission, the training mission in Iraq, and we recognize that there's a force generation process that goes along with that, there are no plans to put additional U.S. forces in Iraq to contribute to that expanded mission. There are, as you know, many ways we can contribute to mission sets without having to necessarily put more, to use the phrase, boots on the ground. There are ways to contribute that don't necessarily mean an increase in footprint.
Can I go back to Iraq?
Sure.
I have a question on Yemen as well, but on Iraq, the attack today, 1 week since the attack on Erbil, and a group claimed responsibility for that attack, Saraya Awliya ad-Dam, in reference to General Qasem Soleimani and Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis. I've seen some analysis in the region claiming that the U.S. is trying to play down these attacks to maintain diplomatic opening with Iran. We've seen the previous administration willing to use military action against such attacks when they happened. Is this administration trying to play down these attacks, or it's actually looking into military action to respond to, if they continue?
We take these attacks very seriously, as I just said earlier, and as the president himself noted. If and when it's appropriate to respond, we'll do so at a time and a place and in a manner of our choosing, and certainly in consultation with our Iraqi partners. Barb?
On Yemen? May I ask a question on Yemen? Thank you. So we're seeing that the Houthis trying to advance on Ma'rib, resumption of what's been described as the worst fighting since 2018. And this came at the heels of the decisions by the administration to hold support to the Saudi coalition offensive operations in Yemen and revoking the global terrorist designation of Houthis. Do you think that Houthis are trying to kind of take advantage of these steps? Are they misreading the administration intentions in Yemen?
I can't speak for the Houthis or what tactical decisions they're making and why. We've been clear that in the decision to halt support for the Saudi-led coalition's offensive operations, that this was really about trying to get some space for humanitarian relief to get in there. And to reflect our concerns over the precision or the lack of precision with which the coalition was executing their offensive operations. But as for what's motivating the Houthis right now, I wouldn't begin to speculate. We want to see, back to the bigger point, we support and we want to see a political settlement and an end to this war so that the people of Yemen can live in a safe, secure environment and this humanitarian catastrophe can be ended. Barb?
Two quick questions, different subjects. First, I was curious whether following the United Airlines Pratt & Whitney engine failure, the department, the military, is taking any kind of look, although they have different Pratt & Whitney engines. Right. Are they looking at or considering whether they need to have a look at the engines they do have, including Air Force One, to see if there's any commonality? And my other question, on the Sexual Assault Commission, while that's going to be a 90-day process, if the Secretary's already beginning to hear what's working but also what's not working, can you give us any more on what his thinking is? Are there things that might be done before the 90 days are up?
So on the first one, I'm going to have to take the question, Barb. I don't have a good answer to a very fair question, so we will take that and we'll get back to you on that. On sexual assault, you've already seen him take some actions, and I think you're going to, he didn't want to wait for the 90 days before he issued that first directive, and he did learn some things from some service input. Without getting ahead of him, I would expect that you will see him likewise take some immediate actions before the 90-day commission completes its work. Some things that I think he believes are warranted by what he's learned, and that he doesn't believe he has to wait for the 90-day commission to come back. But clearly, the locus of the long-term strategic effort will be based on what they learn. Again, without getting ahead of the secretary, I would tell you that it's his intent that this commission do a fair job of looking outside the lifelines, as we say, outside the Defense Department, and consulting experts in the civilian community on this particular issue. Let me go back. Laura Seligman from Politico.
Hey, John. Thanks for doing this. I wanted to follow up on the question about Iraq, actually. So there have now been 3 rocket attacks that endangered Americans in Iraq over the past week that are likely linked to Iran. So does the Pentagon have you, or do you plan to communicate to Iran that killing an American is a red line, as the previous administration did?
Perfectly clear our views about the malign activities that Iran continues to perpetrate throughout the region. As for these particular attacks, again, we haven't gotten into specific attribution, so I don't want to get ahead of the investigative process. Nick Schifrin. Okay. Thought he had a question. Jen, you had one?
Yes, please. John, have you received, or has the Pentagon received General Honore's report on Capitol Hill security that was commissioned by Speaker Pelosi? And have there been any new requests since Friday to extend the National Guard past the March 12th deadline?
I'm not aware that we have General Honore's report. So I will take that question and get back to you. I don't know if that's here or not. And there's been no updates and no additional requests that have come into the building about either extending or changing the scope of the National Guard presence on Capitol Hill. It still continues. I think today we're down around 5,300. In fact, I can give you the exact number here. 5,279 as of today.
And how many states they're coming from?
I don't have that broken down for you. I'll see if we can get that. I don't know if I have that. Yeah, Jenny.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Much. Oh, looks nice today.
Thank you.
I have a question about U.S.-South Korea joint military exercises. You need to comment about President Moon Jae-in's remark. The South Korean President Moon Jae-in said at the recent press conference that he will make a decision on the joint military exercise between U.S. and South Korea, that after consulting with North Korea. As you know, the joint military exercise between U.S. and South Korea is a work between our alliance, and is defensive against North Korea, you know that. And it doesn't make sense, consulting with, North Korea. That means, that North Korea is our potential enemy. I would appreciate your comment on that.
Well, I haven't seen the president's comments, so I'm not having seen them. I'm loath to comment on that specifically. The only thing that I would add, and we've talked about this before, is you're right. We do have a security alliance with the Republic of Korea. It's a linchpin, we believe, for the region, that alliance, and we take it very, very seriously. Our commitments to that alliance we take very seriously. And as General Abrams had said many times, we do have to maintain a significant level of readiness on the peninsula, and the Secretary is confident that he, General Abrams, is doing all the right things to work with our South Korean allies to make sure that that readiness is preserved to the maximum degree possible. And there's lots of ways, excuse me, to preserve readiness and training, as we've seen. Even through COVID, there had to be adjustments made, of course, because of the pandemic. But again, we're confident that General Abrams understands those responsibilities and is working in lockstep with his counterparts in South Korea to make sure that that readiness is preserved and training is conducted and that the alliance is as strong as ever. Okay. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, John. As you know, Afghanistan situation gets worse day by day. This last Sunday, so many people, including civilian children with the mother, has been killed, and nobody took the responsibility. Taliban and the government, they accuse to each other. And also Afghan people want to know how long it's going to take to review the Doha agreement between US and Taliban. Until that, every day people suffering a lot of people be killing. Right. And also Russia wants to invite Taliban to continue the peace talk process. What is Pentagon reaction on that?
We believe that, well, let me go back up. To your first point, I mean, we're certainly mindful of the suffering that continues to be experienced by the Afghan people. And as the Secretary said himself when he was up here Friday, the violence is too high and it needs to stop. The administration is still conducting its review of the Doha Agreement and the compliance mechanisms in that, so I won't get ahead of that. But again, as the Secretary said to you all on Friday, we are mindful of looming deadlines here. And we are certainly mindful of the suffering that's going on inside Afghanistan. We're also mindful of our obligations to our Afghan partners and to the Afghan government. It's important, we believe, continue to believe, that there's not going to be a military solution to this. It has to be done politically, and that means it needs to, negotiations in good faith have to bear fruit and have to be born on the backs of a permanent, comprehensive ceasefire. So again, I won't get ahead of the decision-making process, but I can assure you that the Secretary and everybody here at the Pentagon are 100% committed to doing this review in a thoughtful, deliberate, but timely fashion. We understand that there's looming deadlines. Okay, let me go back to the.
Taliban to talk about peace process.
I would refer you to our State Department colleagues on that. We, specifically with the Russia piece, but as I said in my longish answer to you before, I mean, there is a peace process that has been undertaken already, an Afghan-led peace process, and that's what we continue to support. Okay? All right. I got almost all through them here. Ellie Watson, CBS.
No question. Thank you.
Okay. Christina Anderson. Okay. Abraham from Washington Examiner.
Can you hear me? Christina Anderson?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I'm interested in knowing whether there's been any review of the need for, as expressed by the National Guard and Reserve, for military training and equipment that is much more up to date, and training also with their colleagues who are active duty. They feel some have expressed elements have expressed that they are concerned about training, falling behind on the training. Thank you very much.
Well, let me follow up either later about that. Ma'am, I'm not familiar with those complaints, so I don't want to get into specifically addressing them, and I'm not familiar with that particular issue. So we'll follow up with you after the briefing to get more context from you. Again, just in general, back to what I was saying before when we were talking about the Navy, the Secretary understands, as a former soldier himself, the importance of making sure that our our troops have the training and the resources, the equipment, the systems they need to get the job done, and he's always going to be interested in trying to close that gap to the maximum extent possible. Yeah, over here. Hey, Tara.
I know, I haven't been here for a while, so thanks. I wanted to follow on David's question. In a TV interview, the former Chief of Staff, Kash Patel, took another view on extremism in the military and said the problem doesn't exist. And I was wondering if we could have the Pentagon's views on that. And then secondly, in these stand-downs and listening sessions that will be happening across units, across the services, will there be any attempt to maybe summarize the conversations that are had or gather data from those individual sessions to at least start to get a bigger picture of, how big a problem this might be?
That's one of the reasons. In fact, I would argue it's the chief reason the Secretary ordered to stand down, was to do exactly that, to listen to the men and women of the force about what they're feeling and experiencing out there, to get a better sense about the scope and the breadth of the problem. Will it lead to specific data, as David asked? I doubt that. I mean, it's not about counting heads in the process of the stand down, but clearly it's about trying to get a better grasp of the degree to which the problem exists. And as for Mr. Patel's comments, I would only point you to the fact that the department under the previous administration in October completed a report asked by Congress, and you've seen some reporting about that, but clearly it found that extremism is an issue in the United States military. So I find that a very interesting comment to make when they themselves studied this and came to the conclusion that that it is an issue. And look, I don't think it's debatable that it is or it isn't an issue. What we don't know is the extent of it, and what we don't know is exactly and how best to go about eradicating that and the behavior that it inspires. That's the problem. It is a data set issue. I mean, we do want to know more about, as the Secretary said, it's probably more than we'd like it to be and less than the headlines would suggest. But more importantly, how do we get our arms around that? And that's where the focus is. Nobody's debating whether it is or isn't an issue. It's really just about to what degree. I've got time for just a couple more. Go ahead.
I want to go back to Iraq. In my understanding, the U.S. military is conducting its own investigation regarding Erbil's attack. So do you have any explanation how, after a week, still no indication at all about who might be behind the attack? I'm not talking politics, just facts on the ground and investigation.
You're asking me why we don't know now?
Yeah, still now. No indications at all. In previous attacks, we heard from the CENTCOM.
Yeah. I think it's safe to assume that investigators are still working on this, and it could be that they have a better sense. I'm not privy to the investigation, nor would it be appropriate for me to be. It's an investigation that is being conducted by our Iraqi partners. The Secretary offered to help them with that, and it was a sincere offer. As far as I know, they are still conducting this, and when there's something to report out, we'll do that. Okay, one more. Last, go ahead.
On Yemen, Houthis are moving towards Ma'rib. It may be a very serious humanitarian disaster. Is there a commitment from the U.S. military that they will not allow this to happen? Any commitment to help the government of Yemen to defend Ma'rib or to change policy and go back and help the
Our
coalition?
military operations in Yemen are designed to go after ISIS. It's a counter-ISIS mission. We believe that there needs to be a political settlement to this war so that humanitarian assistance can get to the people that need it. But our mission, it's important for people to remember, our mission in Yemen is one based on counterterrorism. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.